just finished writing a blog that I entitled 14 Really Good Reasons to Rethink Our Support of Public Education. And since then, I've come up with a 15th reason. But I wanted to talk about the first one in this video, and it'll be obviously a little bit different than the blog. I'm not going to read the blog. But I wanted to talk about this in a video because I think that these 15 reasons are very good reasons for people to take a second look at why they should think very hard about our support of the public school system and be thinking about alternatives for their kids. And so the first one is this. There's no way that a parent can overcome or control the indoctrination that's happening in the public schools. Your kids being at school 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months of the year, and 12 years of their life is a lot of time. It's a lot of time and a lot of indoctrination. And it's so prevalent there that it's impossible for you to really counteract that as a parent and have it, put your kids in that kind of intellectual swamp and not have them, come away with some pretty icky, mucky stuff on their clothes. All right. It's really hard for me to understand the continued support as I read article after article. Just today, I was doing some searching about, the use of technology, the iPads. My little granddaughter attends the public kindergarten just down the road. And she's doing actually pretty well there. And one of the things that the first things they did was issue her an iPad. And when I go to pick her up in the afternoon, the first thing she does is buckle her seatbelt and then pull her iPad out of her backpack. And every day I have to say, Bree, we're not going to be doing that. We have other things we're going to do. And she gets very upset. And so this bothered me. And so I started doing some more research, and I started reading a book called Glow Kids and watching some YouTube videos with the fellow that wrote the book, who is a clinical psychologist, of course, and his area of expertise is addiction. And really got very just a little angry about what he talks about, because the studies are all out there, and the people in the powers that be in the public system have to know what this is doing to kids' brains. They can't be this ignorant. People that spend this much time studying things can't not know the effect that these screens are having on little frontal cortexes that are not they're not developed, and the dopamine that floods their brains and is an addictive substance. So that got me a little annoyed. But we will explore why people feel so attached to their public school as part of their community. They feel like the school itself is a community, their class is a community, their teacher is a friend. I understand a lot of that, but we'll explore more of that later. But you should know as a parent that there are at least 3 pillars that have been emphasized ad nauseum in the public system for quite some time. As I've mentioned in previous videos, the CRT, which wasn't called CRT at the time, but it's had all the elements of CRT, was something that I removed my children from the public system for 25 years ago. So this curriculum was coming down, or these grants to write curriculums for social studies, and talking about, westward expansion and the evil white man. That's been happening for 25 years. And what an emphasis on critical race theory does is its inception was about it was legal theory. So when you continually harp on the fact that all whites are racist, all law is racist, our judicial system, all the systems, the legal system, the policing, public safety systems, all racist. Well, what that does is destroys the law. Its purpose is to sow seeds of doubt that our law, our Constitution, and everything that comes from it is corrupted and it needs to be replaced. So CRT is just really the last pillar. The first was really climate change. It wasn't called climate change back then, but back in the 60s, there was a lot of talk about overpopulation. We were going to have a mini ice age. Then we were going to have no potable water. I mean, and if you did a search on all of the climate and, overpopulation, all the scientific things are going on that they claimed were going to end life as we know it. It goes back before the 70s, but the 70s is when it really started, coming into the colleges and so forth. And what is climate change? What does man-made climate change do? Well, it destroys capitalism. We have to bring in a strong central government to control industry, to control pollution, so that life as we know it doesn't end. And Al Gore, an inconvenient truth right at the forefront, told us however many years ago, I need to look that up at this point, but however many years ago that the polar ice caps were going to melt and we were going to have flooding, and most of our major cities along the coast would be, flooded and so forth. That none of that's happened. So, first we're going to destroy our legal system and our laws, our Constitution. Have to replace that because it's racist. Then we're going to have to replace capitalism because capitalism and greed has caused, so much misery. It's caused a country of haves and have-nots, which is true, but not for the reasons, not because of capitalism. Because the honest truth is, we're not living in a society with a capitalist economy anymore. We have so much government control at this point that we really can't call ourselves a capitalist country. We are pseudo-capitalist. We are sort of capitalist country. And the third pillar that's been and being really pushed in the schools now, and it's called social emotional learning, SEL, but this is the alternative sexuality curriculum and theory that is being pushed on kids from the time they're in kindergarten. Well, what does this destroy? Well, this destroys the Christian religion, because Christianity believes in certain moral values. And so there you go. That's just really neat and tidy. You've just knocked out the three real legs out from under our American society and our American culture. So one of the reasons why I say that you cannot overcome the indoctrination, and you definitely can't control it, is because now we have had these three pillars, these three, critical issues to our American way of life, having been going on since the 70s, and in earnest in the last 25 years. And we have a whole generation of kids that have grown up with this indoctrination in the public schools, entering into college, and those that go into teaching get a lot more of it. In fact, there isn't anywhere in any department of any college that isn't getting all of this anyway. But in the education departments especially, this is where teachers are trained and completely and fully indoctrinated. So on they go into the teaching profession, and teachers are going to do what they have been oriented to do, and they truly believe in these philosophies. The vast majority, based on surveys, are 100% on board with all three of these philosophies. And so we have COVID come along, and we have the online learning, and parents start listening in, and they start going, wait a minute, that's not at all. That's not at all what I believe. That's not what our family believes. And so they start showing up at school board meetings, and they start protesting curriculum. And now you have Wisconsin was the latest state to legislate a legal bill of rights for parents, demanding that they have a say in their children's education, and that certain things are not going to be not going to be going on there. Well, this is all well and good, and it's a good start, and it's something that needs to happen. The problem is that if you have a teacher in the system, if you have a teacher in a classroom who truly believes this and simply believes that parents are, they're uninformed at best, and at worst, they're homophobic, they're bigoted, they're racist, they're ignorant and stupid, and that they, as the teachers, know better than the parents, because as a teacher, you went to school, you spent 4 to 6 years, if you got a master's, 4, 5, 6 years, getting this education, teaching you how to be a teacher, and that has to stand for something. That means something. And as I mentioned in the blog, if I had a nickel for every comment on every social post, every blog that I've written, every article that expresses this, that as teachers, we know better. We are the authority here. And parents just don't know. They just don't understand. And especially if they really are, these, Christian bigots, and, they just haven't done their homework, and they don't realize the effect of climate change upon the world. Well, this is something that we need to just, too bad, parents, you don't get to have a say in this because you are the expert. This is what happens. You can't control that teacher, even if they don't have a curriculum in hand, they are going to pass these ideas as much as possible onto future generations. And it's not that they're bad people. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe that they're bad. I believe that they are true believers, that they're zealous in their desire to communicate this information to kids so that we don't have disaster, we don't have a disaster looming. And we don't harm children who are having issues with gender dysphoria. And we don't shame children who are homosexual. And we protect kids from racism. These are things they strongly believe in. And there's no way as a parent that you can either overcome that or control it. We may do all that we can as parents. We can pass legislation. Florida's passing legislation to, limit some of this to, great brouhaha, because parents are insisting and politicians are listening that we don't want our kindergartners being indoctrinated with alternative sexuality, and our first graders and our second graders and our third graders, that is not appropriate. Those are not appropriate discussions to have with very young children. So we can do all these things, but in the end, the problem is that so much of this is mandated from the federal level. And in order to get those federal funds for your students, you have to meet these certain criteria, mandated criteria for teaching certain things. So we can work on that. We can demand that we have transparency, curriculum, and so forth. But in the end, your school boards are going to, your state legislatures and your school boards are going to kind of throw up their hands and say, well, if we don't do some of this, then we're going to run out of money. So that's super unfortunate, but that's a fact of life. Now, just this morning, I had a great interview with Carolyn Charette. She is the CEO of American Preparatory Schools in Utah. And we, at the very end, we started to broach the subject and talk a little bit about how you get around some of those mandates. It is possible to get around it, but you have to have a lot of grassroots support. You have to have, just a ton of ability to overcome some of these school boards and administrators and teachers who truly believe in these different issues that I mentioned. If you don't have that, you're not going to prevail. And again, even if you do, you may not have the ability to, you won't know what teachers are saying. And some proposals are even happening where parents are saying, well, we need to have cameras in the classroom. I mean, I want to know what my teacher is saying to kids, and boy, you can bet that's not going to happen. the teachers unions will not allow such a thing. That could be really amusing and really interesting. Actually, some of the saddest conversations I've had with parents goes something like, I have no idea where my kids have gotten these ideas. This is not what we believe as a family. And they have these crazy ideas and they're so disrespectful, and they won't even talk to me about it. This has just become their truth, right? Those are some of the saddest conversations that you have with a parent. And because what happens is not only do our kids taught to reject anything their parents are saying, they're taught that their parents are stupid, their parents are bigoted, their parents are not to be respected if they have these views. And I know several parents who barely talk to their kids and have any interaction with them because their children have not just rejected their ideas, they've rejected them as parents, as people. It's very divisive in families. So we have to really think hard and believe what I'm saying, believe what many people are saying, that these are issues that can affect people the rest of their lives, affect their families the rest of their lives. Unless we really get on our game, unless we really band together and fight back on this, this is just going to increase. This is not going to go. Nobody's going to. Those on the left, the true believers, the ones that we love, some of these teachers, they are not going to back down. They're not going to suddenly one day say, I feel like I'm offending. I feel like I'm offending some of these parents, and so I'm not going to be so strong. That's not going to happen. They truly believe. I've lost friendships. I'm sure we all have, over people who have become so entrenched in these ideas that they don't care. And it's not that we don't care. I myself, my overriding prayer every day is that I can live my religion, which tells me to love God, which means to love his laws and love his commandments and to obey his commandments, and also to love my neighbor as myself, which starts with myself, but it means to be filled with a love that comes from our Heavenly Father and blesses all of his children. And it doesn't matter what I say or do, that I'm coming from a position of love, that I'm not coming from a position of contention, of division, of hatred, of judgment, but I'm coming from simply reflecting the will of God and his love for his children. That the bottom line is blame and shame and guilt are no way to fashion a progressive and peaceful society. These philosophies that limit freedom, limit the ability of people to live according to their conscience, limit people's ability and their freedom to pursue their dreams and what makes them happy, to be united with their families, to have free discourse, to be able to talk about things. What's happening in our schools, what's being promoted in our schools is not going to lead to a progressive, happy society. And no matter how much we abase ourselves or as white people and try to admit our white guilt and whatever else they're requiring us to do, it's never going to be enough. This is not the way forward. So I hope you'll really seriously consider what you can do to change this trajectory. And I think there's three things. I'll just give you three suggestions. One is to understand that it's compulsory education laws that got us here. Every state has them, and every state can repeal them. In Oregon, that's not going to happen, but it may happen in other states, and that would be wonderful. If we repeal compulsory education laws, it would take the teeth out of the power that the federal government has over the states. Number two, we need to understand that we need school choice. And I don't mean school choice in in a charter school that is still controlled by federal and state mandates. I'm talking about truly free enterprise schools without strings. The money that comes into the state from the federal government for each child needs to follow that child. And that parent needs to have the authority to make that decision. What school, what situation, homeschool, private school, pod school, or public school that they feel is best for their child, is the best fit for their child and their family. The third problem we have are the teachers' unions. And the teachers' unions are the most powerful lobby in the country, maybe second to big pharma. And they have almost unlimited resources, and they are completely political. Their objective is to stop any kind of reform and to stop any politician that really does, has any ideas for any true reform. Reform is not going to happen as long as the teachers' unions have the power that they have. The only way that we can break the teachers' unions' power is to remove your child from the system. And our platform, the OWL Home Education Network, that's our mission, is to provide resources for people, whether no matter what the situation is with you, if you're two of you working at a job or whatever, we're going to figure out a way. And we have figured out ways that we can give you the alternatives that you need to break this stranglehold over education, the monopoly that as many call it, over education that is coming from the federal government. Federal government does not know, the elitists and the powers that be up there, way far away, don't have any idea what your child really needs. Nobody knows what your child needs more than you do. Even the experts who call themselves teachers don't know better than you do what your child needs. So understand we're here to support you, and we're going to make this happen. I hope you'll join with us.